Hi everyone. Welcome to today's class. So we just get started right about now. Okay, our code already seems long, and maybe if you are just seeing this for the first time, I don't know, it might look a little bit scary. Okay, so let me just do a little format. Or let's see. Okay. So yeah, so if you've been following us, started class 1, class 2, class 3, and here is class 4. We've been dealing with HTML and hopefully would like to finish with HTML today so that in our next class we'll get started with CSS. All right, so just a rundown on what our code really is about. First line of code talks about the doc type HTML. Line 3 is just about the HTML roots, which encapsulates everything, both the head and the body tag, right? The head tag is actually where the metadata sits. Then the body tag actually contains code that will be displayed on your browser, right? That's your browser window. We talked about self-closing tags and non-self-closing tags. That self-closing tags actually don't come in pairs, right? So you just see left angle bracket, name of the tag, then you have / and you have a right angle bracket to close the tag, right? While non-self-closing tags always have a pair, right? Okay, talked about comments in HTML, and this is syntax, left angle bracket, exclamation mark, dash, dash, then whatever you want to comment. Then after that, you close it up with dash, dash, and right angle brackets. Talked about multi-line comment, as you can see here, lines 45 to 50. Talked about elements being made up of opening tags, a content or a text, and closing tag. I talked about attributes. Attributes contain properties of elements are actually written in opening tags after the name of the tag. And we did demonstrate that. We talked about bringing in an image using the src and alt, the importance of alt, title. Okay, talked about embedding a YouTube video, and of course, in our previous class, you must have seen how we worked that out. All right. Working with multimedia audio, talked about bringing in an audio file or embedding an audio file to your HTML code. Then, sorry, just hold on. Let me just, okay, going ahead, right? Talked about video, how you could bring in video, add a video content to your website using the video tag, right? Talked about embedding. Okay, YouTube video. Talked about text formatting. So P stands for paragraph, right? And I demonstrated how you could use lorem, maybe lorem 500, lorem 200 to generate dummy text for whatever you want to do at that point. Maybe you don't have a ready content. So you can use lorem to spin out a certain number of texts that would fill in that space for your content until you are able to bring in the right content. So it's more like dummy text. It helps generate dummy text. Talked about different formatting tags present in HTML, sub, strong, span, block quotes, etc. All these are in our previous classes, and they're on the YouTube channel. Talked about difference between inline versus block level elements, to say that inline elements, for inline elements, it actually takes the width of its content, but block level is just going to take the full width of its parent container, and we did demonstrate that. Talked about HTML forms, and that's where we were, HTML forms, and we decided to just use a contact form for demonstration. Okay, so this is what we did last class. We brought in the form tag. Of course, it has an action attribute. Action attribute actually carries the URL to the backend, where the backend will receive the data that the user has imputed on the front end. That's on the website. Talked about method, that this method actually specifies a HTTP method, which could be get, posts, and what have you. Talked about on submit, that on submit is actually an attribute that receives or accepts a JavaScript function, right? So when we go into JavaScript, we are going to create a function called submit data, right? And you're actually going to see how we'll submit the data. Yeah, you're actually going to see how we'll submit the data. We'll demonstrate how a user is going to put in his name, last name, and all the rest. Then clicking on submit, the submit data function, you actually see how that works. All right. Okay, so going down, talked about label, and of course you would find a label within a form tag. So the label is just to, as the name implies, label, right? So it labels the inputs, right? So we said label 4 is equals to first name, and this is actually the text, first name, then the label closes here. We brought in an input, and type is text. Remember, we did say that we have a lot of input types. Input types, talked about tel, like for telephone. Talked about input type email. Of course, we're going to demonstrate that. Talked about input type text, password, URL, checkbox, radio, number, dates, and etc., etc. The list continues. So I did talk about a link to an external resource, which is w3schools.com. That's where you can go to have, there are other websites, but I think that's one of the most popular. So you could take advantage of that. Okay, so label 4 equals to last name. Yeah, same thing, input type text. And we did explain what name tag is, what name attribute is, that the name attribute just helps you to have, when you submit this form, the data that's going to go to the backend, which I did demonstrate in the last class, is going to be a key value pair, right? A key value pair. So when the user finishes inputting his details or her details, whatever, it's actually going to go in JSON formats. JSON. So let me just type that. Let me see. Okay, so it's gonna go in JSON formats. Right. So JSON. So JSON actually stands for JavaScript object notation. So that's JavaScript object notation. So it's going to go in JSON formats to the backend, right? And the backend will receive it and probably send it to the database for storage, or do you perform some kind of data manipulation before it stores that data, depending on what the business case looks like. All right. So we talked about name to actually be the key. Whatever is in this name field would be the key. At the point where you're just writing your code, you could leave that value, the value space empty, knowing that when the user enters something in the input, it's going to be a value, right? So let's open this with live server, so that open with live server. All right. Okay, so all of these are trying to load. Okay. Yeah. So I think this is where we were. Yeah. So value, yeah, I did say if you don't put anything in the value space here, you wouldn't see anything by default except the placeholder. And that if you put a value here by default, then the value is going to show up here. And it's going to overshadow the placeholder, right? It takes priority over, that's in terms of display. In terms of display, so if you have, where you have do, right, instead of do, let's say you have maybe Peter, for example. So if you have Peter in your value field, this is just what is going to happen. You can see, just unloading the page, this is what comes out. You just see Peter by default. But you don't want to do that on your site, because it might look to the user that, oh, maybe someone else is filling this form, right? You know, it might not give the user that confidence to show that, oh, I'm in control. It's an empty form and, you know, I have to fill it. So by default, you leave the Peter, or leave the value, sorry, leave the value field empty. So when you leave it empty with this placeholder that says example do, right? So it's just going to be the placeholder. And of course, you can see that the placeholder is grayed out, right? And it's something that immediately the user begins to type, let's say Peter. Maybe the user wants to type Peter. The placeholder automatically disappears, right? It toggles. You no longer see it. Then the user can delete. By deleting, placeholder will still show. So placeholder is more like the default display. However, it is grayed out. So it does not compete with whatever the user is imputing here. But gives the user an insight into what is expected, even with the label, right? So this is the label. Placeholder still provides additional information to the user as to what the user should input, because yeah, not everybody might be so digitally inclined. So you want to give as much information as possible to whosoever is visiting your site, so that the person will have a seamless experience. All right. We talked about BR to mean line break. Line break. So what that means is that anything that comes after BR is actually going to start on a new line. So it's more like it breaks anything that comes after BR into a new line on the display, as you can see here. Okay, so we also have input type submit, value submit. This value is just what is shown on our website here, submit, right? So if I change the submit to any other thing, let's say I change it from submit to button, for example. So let's check it out. So already you can see it's button. So whatever you put in the value option, that's for submit, input type submit is actually what you're going to see here. So let's go back and change from button to submit, right? All right, so that was a recap on our previous class, and we're just going to go straight in to what we have today. We are still talking about input types, and today we'll talk about other input types that we didn't talk about before. So let's go. Input type. So as you can see, just by typing this, that's for my VS Code. It already gives me a list of what is possible or what can be typed or what could possibly be an input type. So let's say email. Let's choose email, right? Let's work on email. And let's, of course, don't forget your name. Give it a name, email. Then we have value empty by default, placeholder. You can say example mail if you like, or you can say example at should I say maybe Gmail, but I don't want to put Gmail so that the user might not think that your website doesn't accept any other mail third-party application apart from Gmail. So what I would do is I can use example at mymail.com, right? Or you can say example at mail.com. It really depends. Or if you want to put Gmail, you can still put it, right? So, but I really don't want to send the wrong information because someone that has a Yahoo Mail and doesn't have a Gmail that comes here might just feel that it's possible the website does not accept Yahoo Mail, for example. So I could just say maybe at your mail, right? Could just say example at yourmail.com. Then remember, we are going to close it up. So example at yourmail.com. So I could use that. And yeah, so as you can see, okay, we didn't put a label. That's why there's no label. All right, so let's head straight in. And before our inputs, let's give it a label. So label, so let's give label. So what is this label for? The label is actually for email. So close it up and we have email. So you can write email, you can write email address. It really depends on you. Yeah, so email, as you can see here, you have email. After that, you have an input. And you can, of course, see our placeholder, example at yourmail.com. Then there's this submit button. So if we still want the submit button to go down, what we just do is at the end of this input, we are going to just give a line break. So this is the input, so we can give break here. When we go into our CSS, then you will see the power of styling. So we actually invoke the power of CSS. And you're going to see how we bring in the colors and all of that. So, but for now, we are still on HTML. So that's why we're using something like this BR to actually push the next tag or element down, right? So that's email. So what this email does, so why do we use input type email for an email? Why don't we say input type text? If we say input type text, that would still work. But what input type email does is that input type email understands that every email is supposed to have an at, right? And it's supposed to have a top level domain. So those two things must be there. So for example, if I say maybe the user is filling his email and the user says my email, for example, maybe my email.com, for example, and says submit. So first thing you're going to see is validation. Please fill in this field. We did that in our last class, and what we actually did was we brought in the attribute called required, just as a refresher. On line 142, line 142, you can see this required is only on this line. So what that means is that if you do not impute something in this field, then it will never get submitted. Right. So your form is actually going to check for that. So let's input something. Let's just say John. Right. So let's say John. Okay. Last name, let's say we don't want to put in last name, and we just go to our email to say myemail.com. So let's see what happens when we try to submit. So do you see this message that comes out? So this message just comes out by default from HTML, telling us that, oh, please include an @ in the email address. Myemail.com is missing an @ right? Very intelligent. So that's actually what the type email does. But if we had said, if we wanted to use this field for email and we said input type text, for example, it's actually going to allow the user to submit this. Okay, so let's try it out. So let's say, so input type, what we are just doing here, we are just changing the input type. Instead of email, maybe we made a mistake, or maybe we did copy and paste. You know, sometimes, for example, let's say you're going to do a lot of label inputs, you know, like you're going to have a lot of inputs. So sometimes you might just say, oh, let me copy this label and copy these inputs and modify it, right? You can decide to copy it and paste it somewhere and say, oh, let me modify it. And with that, you now forget to change some things. Maybe the other one had input type text, and when you pasted it, wherever you pasted it, you forgot to change the input type from, say, text to email. So if you had, so that's actually where things like this can occur. So if you had input type and you said, instead of email, you said text, right? So what's going to happen? Text. So let's say mymail.com. Let's fill in the first one. Remember, it's a required field. Without filling in something, we can't submit. And we click on submit. So the form is submitted, right? But why is showing this page? Remember, it's because of the form action. That's why immediately you click submit and that form gets submitted, it goes to the action page. Like that's whatever you put in the action attributes is where it's going to go with the method. But method get. So let me change this method to post. Let me change it to posts. Okay. So you've seen that with input type text, it wouldn't even validate. So when you say input type email, it validates the user data. That's actually what we call data validation, right? Either you say required. This required is data validation. Anything you do to ensure that the user puts in the correct thing. You don't want people to come and spam your website and just come and put anything and click submit and it goes. Then you need to do what we call data validation, right? Whatever the user is inputting, you need to validate it in your code because you need real people. You don't even want robots to use your sites, you know, to fill in forms and all of that. So that's why you even see stuff like captcha code that to say, oh, verify that you are human and all of that. All those things are validation, you know, extra layers of depending. Some of them are for security, some of them are for you know, business. You know, it helps the business, right? Because at the end of the day, people come to subscribe to your maybe mailing list, or they come to fill a form to contact you. You know, you don't just want dummy inputs from a user. You want accurate data so that you'll be able to probably send the user emails in the future. So that's why for an email input, then please use an email type. That already helps you for validation. All right. So we said mymail.com, and definitely that didn't work. So what if we say mymail @? Because remember the last thing was inputs and @. or let's say at Gmail, for example, and we did not put .com, just to show you. So what will happen? Let's submit. Okay, so this page isn't working. All right, so my mail at Gmail. So I didn't put .com and it went. So so I think that's how far that input type email validates data. It looks for this at. Okay, so let's try something else. Let's remove the first let's remove my mail and just leave it at gmail.com. So let's submit. Okay, so you can see it says please enter a path followed by at. So it now says at gmail.com is incomplete. Okay, so I'm just testing this, testing the input type email to see the different scenarios that could play out, after you've built your site and you leave it there, different people from different parts of the world will actually visit your site, and not everybody might be technologically inclined or digitally inclined, like you, the developer. So you always need to think in that light, right? Think in that direction. So I'm just trying to put up different scenarios to see how far the email validation can work. All right, so let's replace my mail at Gmail. Okay, so we've already tested. So if you don't put anything after at and you try to submit, what will happen? Okay, so same thing. It says, please enter a path following at. My mail at is incomplete. So, these are just some of the things that follows the validation, as you can see. But when you say my mail at gmail.com, it's going to submit. So, forget about this error. It's just the URL I'm sending it to. I'm sending it to actionpage.php, but that page does not exist on my code. So it definitely would throw an error. So yeah, so that's input type email. So let's do the next one. So you can still put required here if you like. It depends. It depends on the requirements, the business requirements, right? So you can put required so that any user that does not submit his email that does not input his email, his or her email cannot submit that form. Right. So those are some extra restrictions depending on the business case. All right. So next, let's demonstrate label for number, right? So label for number. So so you can say what is, I don't know, maybe your number. What is your street number? Okay. So instead of what is, remember it's a contact form. So let's say street number, right? So street number, it's a label for street number and inputs. So here you're going to say type. Type is going to be number. What else? We're going to have name. Name will be, you can say street number. Street underscore number, right? Or you can say street NO. NO. So if you are using street NO here, then you would most likely go back to your label to change it to street NO. So you can achieve uniformity, and also so that when you place your mouse on this input type, then there's actually going to be a communication between the label and this. You actually see something on the tooltip. I don't know if you saw something like that here. Let me show you. Let me see. Okay. Please fill in this field. This what it's showing is actually a tooltip, right? So when I place my cursor on that input and leave it for a while, let's see what it shows here. Okay. So, okay, so but there's a tooltip. Yeah. Yeah. It shows here. So we are not seeing it here. So it doesn't show on last name. So where is last name? This is last name. And the label for last name. Okay, so it conforms with this last name. All right, so I could always check that out later so that we don't waste our time there. So we have label for street number. Let your name, carry the same. So value is going to be empty. We can add a placeholder. Placeholder is going to be, I don't know, maybe 25 or 35, right? So what else would we have? Yeah. So in number is optional, right? So you can bring in mean. So this bringing this mean and max is still part of data validation, right? So because you know that nobody will be living in house number 0. So you can say mean to be 1. Okay, so before I do this, let me show you when there is no mean, right? So that you would see how it plays out. So at this point, I've not added minimum like mean. That mean just stands for minimum, then max stands for maximum, like maximum number. So street number, I have 35 here as the placeholder. So you'd see, so look at another thing, because we said input type number. Look at when I click in the input box, do you see this arrow up and down? It comes by default because input type equals to number. But all these ones that have input type of text, you can't see any button up and down here. Here, you can't see anything. Input type email, you can't see anything, of course. So that's why I said all these input types have their use cases. It's just for you to understand, or for you to ask yourself, what use case is it? What do I want to achieve, right? If it's a number, or what do I want the user to input? Yeah, so that actually determines the use case. So here you can see that you can increase, you can reduce. So let's see, let's click up here. So you have 1, 2, 3. So we can use this to go up. We can use the arrow button down to come down. But do you see, it goes to minus because there's no end. So you can just keep going as far as, but this is street number and nobody lives on street number minus 17. Right? But remember, if you were doing something like, if you were collecting something like temperature, yeah, so we do have temperature like minus 10 degrees Celsius and all of that. So if you were asking the user to put the current temperature in his environment or time zone or location, you definitely would allow minus. Yeah, right. So, but this is street name, and of course, it's very logical that nobody lives on minus 10 streets. So what do? You can decide to put a mean to say minimum of 1, then maximum of yeah, maximum of maybe 1,000,000 something. You may not have up to 1,000,000 houses on the streets, but just just to be very open, right? So if you like, any number is really about your choice, right? You can make it 10,000, you can make it 1,000, you can make it maybe 10,000. So let's think 10,000 is fair. Nobody's house will be 9,999, but let's leave it there. All right, so here, so can the user type 0? Let's try. Okay, 0. Let me see. Minus. Okay. So if you type, I think you can have that. But let's try to increment 3. Let's reduce. Okay. So that min max is actually working with these arrows, right? So if the user maybe imputes a value or decides to use this to incrementally go up to his choice number, so it means he cannot go below 1, cannot, but he can type 0, and 0 will submit. So let's try that out. John, so let's put an email, my mail at example.com. So if a user does this, although we've set the min max to say, oh, okay, value must be greater than or equal to 1. You can even see the tooltip here. But let's submit and see if that works. Okay, so the user can type. You're free. You're free to type, but you cannot submit. You see, because of that validation, we've said that mean number should be 1. Max is 10,000, or 1,000, right? Or I think 10,000. So you can't submit if your value is less than. Neither can you submit if it's greater than. So let's try greater than. Let's say 90,000. So let's try to submit. Yeah. So it should tell you that value must be less than or equal to 10,000. That's what we set in our code. So you are free to type. You can even put a minus sign here if you like, but you won't still be able to submit. So that's what input type number does for number, right? You actually want to get a number. I just want to get a number from the user or from the client or from whosoever is visiting your site, right? So this is actually what to do. You use input type number and you can perform validation with the min max. It's up to you. You can even make it required. It depends. If it's required, you can make it required. If it's something that you need, that the user must fill it before he submits, you can still make it required depending on the business case. However, just to mention, most modern websites, when you look at how they are built, you wouldn't landing on those websites at the very first time, it wouldn't give you a lot of details. It wouldn't ask you to input a lot of details to sign up. Some of them will just say, oh, sign up with Google. You just sign up and before you know it, you can already start you're already in the dashboard. While some of them would say, okay, maybe just enter your first name and your email, finish. Then you click submit. From there, you are signed up. But when you sign up, it will send an email to your send an email notification to your mailbox asking you to verify your account. When you click on verify account, it will actually verify your account and launch you to the dashboard. When it launches you to the dashboard, on the profile section or on the account section, you would see a list of items to fill, right? So all these things are just to improve user experience so that it doesn't take someone so long a time to create an account on people's or on your website, right? So just to mention that. So be mindful of that required, right? Putting as much required as possible. Yeah. So we have input type number. Let's go for another one. Label. Okay, let me just give some space between each of them so that it makes a little bit more sense. Okay. So All right. Okay, so let's say label. So label 4. Okay, so let's say password. Okay, so let's use password this time. Label for password. And you want to say, maybe set your password if you like, or you just leave it at password, right? Password. So this label for password. So let's do input type. So this type password, right? So we're going to use type password. Name, password. So we have value. Of course, we'll leave it empty. Placeholder. You can say set your password if you like. Set your password. Okay. Then after your placeholder, yeah, so you can stop here. You can make it required if you like, depending on the business case. So let's check out, how does input type password work? So you see we have this. So we still have this coming on the same line because we don't have a line break. So let's quickly put a line break there. Yeah, so this is the last. So let's put a line break. Right. So we have that on the next line. Okay. So password. So how does password work? Of course, we know. So immediately you start typing, it will encrypt whatever you are typing. Okay. So Daniel, quickly, see your hand.
So from the site we are building, can we
Yeah.
make, like, for readability, can we create more space in between the first line, the first name, last name, email, street number, and password, like, for readability? Is it possible?
Yeah, sure. It is. We just use the BR.
Okay.
We just put
Okay, like more, like two more,
yeah. 2 more would take it 2 lines down. So there are other ways to do it in CSS, but since we've not started going into CSS, I don't want to bring in CSS at this point, so that when it's time for CSS, we are just going to do purely CSS. So I'm just going to show you how to use HTML to achieve some of these things. So you can put BR, you can put another BR if you like. BR. Okay, let's say we have 3. So let's check it out. Okay, so we put that 3 after last name. So let's go to first name, and put some BR. So we had 1 BR. Let's add 2 more. BR, then BR, right? Okay, so this is how it plays out. Give some space. So same thing, email. You can even put the BR on the next line if you like, it will still work. So you can say BR and say another BR. Okay. So that worked. After street number, you can add 2 more BRs. That's line break, right? Okay. So you can say BR, then another BR. All right. So yeah, thanks, Daniel. That makes more sense. Then before this submit, let's actually give 2 BRs before the submit, so that it always take that submit button 2 lines down. So let's say before this, we can just say, let's have a BR and let's have another BR. Okay, so it's gonna push the submit downwards, right? Okay. So yeah, so that's password. So what happens? I was trying to demonstrate. Yeah, so of course, if you type your password, you can see that by default, it encrypts it. All right. It encrypts your password by default. Okay. Yeah, so you actually have other input types. Input, and you say type. Okay, so let's do type checkbox. We just do three more. Type checkbox. Sorry, please mute if you're not speaking. Okay, so give me a moment. Okay. Yeah, all right. So input type checkbox. So at this point, what are the options in the checkbox? So you're going to have label first before you have that input. Okay, so let's have label for. So let's say label for. I don't know, maybe maybe multi-choice. Let's say label for multi-choice, and we want to say, please maybe tick all that apply, right? Tick all that apply. Okay, so let's have a line break here. So let's have a line break first. BR. All right. So label for multi-choice, input type is a checkbox. So what else do we have? Name. So name. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so let's say label for question 1. Let's say question 1. And the name is question. It's gonna have one label. Okay, but let's go ahead. Let's go ahead first. Okay, so name equals to question 1. Let's say value. It's empty. Okay. So let's check it out first. Okay. Please tick all that apply. Okay, so let me see. So you want to have, okay, please tick all that apply. Let's see. I'm trying to build up something. Please tick all that apply. So let's have a line break after that. BR. Okay. So it's gonna bring that checkbox down. All right. So trying to build up something. So after these inputs, So let's say label 4. Okay, so let's hold on that label 4 for now. After the inputs, let's have let me see. My cats, or let's say trying to form something where would be able to take, okay, oranges. Let's talk about fruits. Let me see. Okay, so oranges are yellow. Let me see. Oranges are yellow. Okay, so let's say we have another. Let's have a line break there. BR. Okay, so let's have another input. Type equals to checkbox name. So let's say question 2. Question 2. So value. Then so you can say oranges are yellow, green, right? Then we have another line break. All right, so we have next input, type, still checkbox. So name, let's say question 3. Question 3, value still empty. Okay, so let's say oranges are blue, right? So let's have a line break there. All right, so let's check it out. So please tick all that apply. Oranges are yellow, oranges are green, oranges are blue. So you can check, you can uncheck. So the user can check and uncheck the box, right? So when you see something like multiple choice questions, maybe on they said it is computer-based test, that's CBT, where you have options. People are able to choose. So for this one is a checkbox. So checkbox, usually checkbox will allow you to the user to select as much as, right? But if you are using a radio button is like it is either A or B or C or D, right? That one does not give you it doesn't give you so much, it doesn't allow you to choose two options. So it means it can either be A or it is B. But checkbox is used where maybe you can tick more than one, as you can see here. Then another thing is if you want something to be ticked by default, for example, maybe you want on loading of this page, you just want one of them to be checked or ticked by default. So you can come here. Maybe we want the second one, for example, to be checked. So after your value in the input element here, so you can just say, checked. Add the attribute called checked. So immediately you add checked by default, right? Immediately you just load this page. The second one will remain checked by default. except you want to uncheck it, so you can uncheck and check back again, right? So just to let you know that there is something called checked. You want to check a particular checkbox by default. So you say checked. Okay, so I think that's for checkbox. Let's do radio buttons, radio. So label for radio. No, not label for radio. It's input type radio. So let's say label for gender, maybe gender. So you close it up and you say gender, right? So you say gender. So here, what will you have? You have input type. You have what? Radio. Radio. Input type radio. What else? You have name. Maybe you can say gender. You have value, empty. Then you have, yeah, close it up. Input type radio. So let's see what that turns out. Okay, so yeah, so I said gender. So I'm supposed to have male and female. Okay, that's what I want to achieve. All right, so let me see. Label for. Label for. Okay, so I can say label for male. Sorry, let me see. Gender. Or let me see. What I can say here is, can just go directly to say male. Then we put in a radio, and the name would be, let's leave the name at gender. So that's going to be the key. That's like the identifier to say, oh, what's this value? Because the person would say, okay, so that actually returns, let me see. Radio actually returns yes or no, right? So name, we can still leave it at male. Because for radio, it's either this or this. If it's not this, it's the other one. Okay. So we can still leave it at male. Value, the value that will come will be yes. If the person ticked male, then it is yes. If the person clicked on female, then the female will be yes. You know, if it is male, it's either male no, or male yes, or female yes, or female no. So let me see. So label for female, then you'd have female, right? Then going down, you have inputs, and you have type. Okay, so you have type and you have, sorry, we'll soon go on a break in few minutes. I think after this, we'll go on a break, just 2 minutes break. You can stand up, stretch your leg, you know, before you go back on your seat. So input type, still radio, right? And we have name, we have female, we have value, empty, we close it up, right? So how does this work? Okay, we have male, female here. Ah, 2 of them are ticking. That's because I've not grouped them. Okay. So let me see. Okay, so label for, so let's check these out and see. Okay. Input type radio name equals to male. Okay. Male, male, female, female. Okay. All right. So just give me a moment. Let me just check. Let me see. Radio button, HTML, input type radio. Yeah, so we have input type, radio, ID, name, value. Okay, label 4. Input type is radio, ID is this, name this, label 4. Okay, so let's check. All right, so how does this work? Let me see, select your favorite web language. Type is radio, has an ID, name, value. Okay, label 4, HTML, HTML label, yeah. Input type is radio, has an ID. Yeah, so I think it's this ID that actually does the magic. All right, so let's have an ID here. So let's have an ID equals to, I don't know, let's just say maybe 1, for example. So let's have an ID here equals to 2. Okay, so let's check if that works. Yeah, let me see. Okay, so that still didn't work. All right, let me see here. Okay. Okay, so we have type, we have an ID, we have name, we have value. Oh, okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think let me see. Okay, so let's see. So value, let's see, give it male here. Male here. Value, let's give it a female. All right, so let's check it out. Does it work? Still didn't work. Okay, guys. So let's take a break. Just 2 minutes break. Let me try to figure out what that is. We'll be back in the next 2 minutes. Right? So let's see. So I'm trying to play a song while you are just taking a break. Let me see. Just play a song for you. Okay, I got it. So we'll fix that. Hey guys, we are back. So I hope you're able to stretch your leg at the least. And yeah, quickly I was able to just figure out what we are not doing right. Yeah, so it's just about the name, right? Name. So the name actually has to be the same. So let's say gender, gender here, gender. So with that name, it's actually going to see it as a radio that could either switch between the first and could equally switch between the second. Gender, yeah. So label for, let's say gender here. So yeah. So let's check it out. It's got to work now. Yeah, so Daniel, I can see your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I can see what you just did now. If it applies to the checkbox, the checkbox we did up there allow for multiple answers. So if you make the label, the name for the label, if you make it the same, like question, 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 well, this change that you make now in this radio, you don't apply to the checkbox. That whereby user can only check only one. Is it possible?
Okay, so let's try it out right away. Okay, so we have this is a checkbox. So name is question 1, question 2, question 3. All right. So let's say question, maybe just question, 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 right? So yeah, so this one is checked by default. So if we do this, let's see. So that still didn't work, right? Daniel. So changing the
No,
name,
the label.
the label. Okay. So changing it to question also. Okay, so let's see. So the label for is question, name is question, question, question for the 3 checkboxes. Okay, so let's see. Let's reload. And yeah, so let's see here. So that still didn't work. So if you need something that is a multiple choice where the user can tick all that applies or as many as, you actually use the checkbox, right? But if you need something that is either A or B, or maybe between A, B, and C, is either A or B or C, then you actually use the radio. But
Okay,
remember,
okay, okay.
yeah, remember when you use the radio, ensure to give the name the same value. So let's actually go back to this checkbox and change it to question 1, question 2, question 3. Okay. So yeah, so ensure to give this name. Yeah, the name has to be the same. So when the name is the same for radio button, then it's actually going to do that. Oh, this is part of, or this is a pair, or more like this part of what I'm supposed to be selecting is either this or this. So if we add another one here, so let's say inputs type. Oh, that's a tab index. Inputs type radio. So we have name. So let's say gender. Then we have value. So what will be the value for the gender here? We have male, female. Okay. What will be the value here? Okay, so I think there's transgender and a whole lot. So let's just see and give an ID. Let's say 3. Let me see. Okay, we don't have any label for it. So that's why we are not seeing it. So, but let's say label for uh, this. Let's see. Say transgender. So let's see. It's either this or this or this. And you can use the line break to put them on different lines. So let's see, after the first one, you have BR, line break. Then you have another BR. So you can just copy that. Let's copy that. So I try not to copy as much as possible, but that's something I've been typing over and over. So you permit me to copy and drop it there. Copy and drop this one here. Yeah. So male, female, or this. Okay, so yeah, so that's input type radio. Time is far spent. So we want to do input type. Okay, so I think I'll leave the rest for you, but I would just like to do one. Just one last one very quickly. Dates, right? Label for uh dates. Just want to do label for dates. I can say select. Okay, so I can have birthday, yeah. So I can have birthday here, right? Can have birthday and say input type, or this tab index. So let's say type, input type, what dates, date, right? So name, to name I can say, instead of dates here, label for birthday, right? So let's say label for birthday and name is birthday, right? Name is birthday. Then I'm gonna have value. Then what else? Input type. Yeah. Okay, so let's check this out. Dates. So, so when you see this on a website, this is actually how it is achieved. You have birthday, then by default. So do you see, I didn't even need to put placeholder. So by default, when you say input type date, it just brings out this for you. So the user can click here and input his own dates if he likes. So here the user can say maybe 23rd December, maybe 1900, for example. Alternatively, the user can click here, right? Can just click on this icon and choose. Is it 1900? Is it 1902? And all of that. So person can choose June, maybe it's 7th of June, 1900, right? Yeah. So I will stop there for label and inputs. I wouldn't go into that again. So, but you can still go to w3schools.com. There are a whole lot of input types. So you can check them out. I've done some here. But I think text area, yeah. So let's touch text area. Text area. Um, text area. Text area. I think that's self-closing also. Yeah. Hope I'm right here. Text area. Let's see. Text area. Okay, so let me see. Okay. So this is not what we want to achieve. Okay, so let's say text area. Just still know what we want to achieve. See, all our code is coming out. So let's see. Text area should be self-closing. So why is it throwing? Okay, so let me see. Name. You see throw an error here. All right, so let me just reference the exact syntax text area. So why are we having that? Okay, so text area ID dot. Yeah, okay. So it actually gives you room to write something as a default. So instead of say placeholder, you're actually going to have text in between, right? So let's see. Okay, so where we have text area. Okay, so let's have the corresponding. Let me see. Let's take this out. Okay, so maybe depends. You can say maybe this is a portion of text. I don't know. This is a text area. You can say this is a text area, but this is just for the class anyway. If you are building a website, you will not see this. It's not professional to say this is a text area when you get here. So let's see. So why do we still have? Oh, so why is this bringing out all our code here? Interesting. Okay, so let's have the text area outside our form and check out something. Let's say after our form, let's see. Let's drop the text area here. Let me see. Okay, so text area, this is the text area. Let's see that second one. So we now have to, let me reload and see. Ah, okay, so it worked. Only that I didn't reload. So this worked, this equally worked. And you see, by just reloading, that just solved our problem. So you see, these are some of the challenges you encounter in coding, right? You will write what you're supposed to write, and of course, it should work, but somehow it doesn't just get to work, and you're wondering, what happened? So it might just be reloading. That might just be what is just holding it or making it not to work. You might just have to just reload and you know. So we can now take out this one. Take out this second one. Yeah, and leave this one. Text area. So you see the difference between a text area and an input. I just needed you to see the difference between a text area and an input, right? An input, look at by default, this is how an input is, but text area is bigger, right? By default. So the user can delete this default text and type his own whatever, right? Okay, so there are some attributes there. I think columns, maybe like 60. So you can put in columns and rows, right? So column, as you can see, it has enlarged it, giving it up to 60 columns if you want to describe it that way. Then the rows, you can increase it in rows here, right? And say maybe like 50. So do you see our text area has increased up to 50, let's say 50 rows. Yeah, so you see how big it is now. So somebody can type and just keep typing and, just keeps going. So it measures it in rows and columns and the rest. Yeah. All right. So, but this is awkward. So what we just do is we can just leave it at the default. Maybe you can leave it at 20 or so. Or we leave it at 10, 10. Okay, so 10, of course. Or you leave it at 0. So 0 will just give it the defaults. So it really depends on what you want to achieve and how you want to do it. But with CSS, right, you can do a lot of things in CSS. In CSS, you will be able to increase this input, right? You can increase this input and it becomes as long as this. It can be as long as this text area. It can be as wide, it can be as high or something. So that's with CSS anyway. So, but this is just with raw HTML, and this is just me showing you things you could do if it's just HTML. Yeah. So that's Textarea. So I would give you an assignment. Yeah. So instead of us to go into that, I'll drop it as an assignment. So go and let me just type it in the chat. So try out what select. Try out select tag and try out select tag, or no. So let me say use the select tag. Yeah. Use the select tag to come up with a drop down list of 20, yeah, so 20 tech fields. 20 tech fields. Yeah, so I think that's the assignment. Use the select tag to come up with a drop down list of 20 tech fields, and it should be submitted. It should be submitted to a backend. So let's just stop there. Yeah, the user input, right? It should be submitted to a backend, maybe URL or something. Okay, so I think that's the assignment here. So that we won't go into that. So use that to try your hands. Okay, so we'll go into table. Lastly, before we wrap this class, we just look at tables. Yeah, so let's see. All right, table. So let's have table here. So while working on HTML, you definitely have to create tables. Yeah. So of course you use the table tag to create tables. So let me just type it here. So the table tag is used to create tables. Let's see. So I decided to just copy that assignment and drop it somewhere so that I will not lose it. So I can put it in a comment. So I can drop it here and I can comment it out. Okay. Then I can say assignment, right? Assignment. So assignment when? So today is 20th, 09, 2024. All right. So we have the table tag, and the table tag is used to create tables. So inside the table tag, would have the head or table row, rather. We're gonna have table row. Table row, right? Then inside the table row, let me see. You're gonna have table row. Let me see. Just give me a second. Okay. Inside the table row, you're actually gonna have the table head, TH, right? You're gonna have a TH. I will show you how all these things play out at the end of the day. Table row, then you have table head. You have another table head. So I will show you. So if you have a table, so let me just check table. I just want to show you something. So let's just say images. No, not this kind of table. Okay. So let's say table with rows and columns. Okay, so something like this. Let's use this to demonstrate. Okay, so let me see. Let me use this. I hope it takes me to the website. Yeah. Okay, maybe we can just zoom in so that I can use this. Okay. So you can see. So when we say table, table is like from here before this column 1, right? Before this column 1, that's actually the container. Table will start from here, come down to this place, to this last line here. That's the table, right? This first table, so look at it, where we have the table tag on line 190 is like the parent container. You can call it parent container, and that's what it's going to contain from here, you know, where my cursor is pointing down to below row 3, right? So that's the parent container holding this table. That's how it's going to show. So inside table, we have TR, table row. So this is what HTML does. So HTML is going to display the table from left to right. You understand? That's how it creates it from left, like you are moving left, gradually going to your approaching your right, right? So if you bring in another, then from there you now have TH. So this TH is just for the head, right? You know, when you have a table, you definitely have a heading, right, in the table. So in this case, you can say, in this case, column 1, column 2, column 3, they are headings, right? Then under column 1, you have row 1. So row 1 is like table data, right? Table data of this heading. This next line, row 2, is like the table data of the second of the first heading. The row 3 here is the third data of still this first heading. I'm going to give an example so that it will be clearer, but just understand that HTML is going to create this table from left to your right, from left to your right, from left to your right. So that's why we have table, TR. When you say table row, it's going to bring in the first row. When you say TR again, it's going to bring in the second row. But let's start with the first TR, right? And TRs is going to have many TH, right? That's for the very beginning. You have TH. So the TH is head. You are going to see the demonstration so that you see the difference. So TH, let's say you have serial number, SN. So remember, we are making our headings. So let's say SN, serial number. And another TH, we have like fruits. Yeah. So let's say fruits, right? You're going to see the outputs. So let's say in another TH, so table heading, you have quantity, for example. Okay. So remember, look at it. We have table here, which is the parent, right? After table, we have TR. That's the table row, right? So, okay, so let me just add some comments here. Represents, so let me just say represents the table row, right? It represents the table row. So this one, so that when you're going through the code later, you would at least have some explanation. So this one represents, represents the table heading. So represent the table heading, right? Yeah. So this table tag is more like the parent container. So you can call it parent container for the entire table, right? Okay, so far so good. Remember, we have TR, TH is inside TR, right? So this is the opening of the TR on line 191, and the closing is far down here on line 201, right? Then in between the TR, we have TH. So the TH is actually going to define the column, but we'll get to see that. So TH, and the first one is SN, that's serial number. Look at where it ends here. Then we have the next TH opening. We have fruits. It ends here on line 197. We have the next table heading, the opening tag of table heading. It ends here on line 200. So far, let's see what we have. Let's go to our site that we are building. Okay, so let's reload. Okay, so let's try to give some space. Let's try to give some space so that what we are coding will come out. We'll see it clearly. So let's give some space. BR. Let's just give multiple BRs so that I can push that map down. So it's BRs, maybe up to 5 or something. Okay, so yeah. So you can see you have SN. This is a table already. We are going to still demonstrate, bring out the borders so that you will see. So we have SN, serial number, we have fruits, we have quantity, right? So this is like the first row of the table. And as you can see, this table head, or each of these table head texts is bold by default. So you have serial number, you have fruits, you have quantity. So let's go back. So TH, let me add more explanation here. So TH represents the table heading. So it represents the table heading and also defines the rows, right? It defines the rows. Okay, so remember, these are first TR from line 191 to 201. We are done with that one. Then we have another TR again because we want to build on the table. We want to supply information. When we say serial number, we want to say one. Fruit, we want to say like apple. Quantity, we want to say like maybe 2. You understand? So this quantity, we could even say maybe, yeah, okay. So let's maybe in kg or something. But we want to build on this table now. So let's go. So the first, so you have another TR again, because you want to bring in the next row. But when you have the TR, so you're not going to have another TH because you already have a heading. So what you are going to have is TD. What's TD? It's table data. So let me comment and say TD represents the table data, right? And also forms the column, right? So TD. So this is table data now. So let's say 1. So remember that this 1 represents this serial number, right? So it will line up under serial number. The very first table data will line up under the first table heading. Then the next one, remember all of this is still within our table row. Please don't write it out outside your table row. Make sure it's still within your table row. So you're going to have another table data. So here would have, so we'll not have 2. What we are going to have is fruits. So what are the types of fruit we are talking about? Let's say mango. So this second table data will go and line up under fruits. So that's why we said mango. Quantity. So let's bring in something. TD. Table data. So we are going to have quantity. Let's say maybe 20. We have 20 mangoes. So let's stop there and check out. So can you see? We are going to bring out the lines, don't worry. But I just need you to see how this works. It's going to line up under each of them. So make sure you don't make a mistake. And as you can see, another thing I can see here is that this table heading, it comes bold by default to show that really this is heading. But do you see the table data? Table data just comes on a normal text. So that makes a lot of sense, right? So let's say you want to build on that table. So we are done with the second table row, remember. So any other table row you want to bring in, it has to be after the closing tag of this table row. So you can, take your cursor down and say TR. We can actually copy what we have up there. But I think I'll just do typing. So table data, let's say we want to do 2. Another TD, we want to do apple. Then the next, remember the next is quantity. So it's going to be still TD. So let's say 50, for example. So you can see. So with this, you can just keep building and building and building your table. So, but now, if you want to see your table, if you want to really see it look like a table, you need to bring in, styling, right? So let's see. So on line 190 is where we have our table. Remember that this table is the parent. So we can come to the parent. Parent is just the overall container. So we can come to the parent and say, at this point, I'm going to bring in style so that our table will make sense. So style, I will just say border, right? I would say border maybe 1 pixels, solid, black. Okay, so let's say black. So what do we have? Okay, so we have, so yeah, so you can see that we have border round, right? We have border round it. So our table is gradually making sense. Then what next? So let's come to this TR and style it. The first TR, so let's say style, still give it, do we give it a border? Do we give it, okay. So, but we can, let me see. Okay, so let's see. Let me just see. Border, so let's say 2 pixels. Okay, let's see, make it 1. Or yeah, 1 for now. 1 pixels solid. So let's differentiate it. Let's just say red, for example. 1 pixel solid red. So what happens? Did we have anything? Okay, so we didn't have anything here. So why didn't we have anything? Let me see. Okay, so let me go into the TH. So let's still hold on that one. Just to give it a border. Let's just say 1 pixels solid blue. So what happens? Okay. So there's a blue, there is blue there. But let me increase the pixels so that it will be bold. Let me see. Instead of 1 pixels, let's make it maybe 4. Okay. Um, so let me see this TR. So why doesn't this work? Because this would just reduce our problem and we wouldn't have to be styling every TH. Okay. So we're actually going to check that out. But if you copy this style, I will check out that later and paste it here. Let me see TH style. So why do we have this? Okay. All right. So if you just keep doing that on each of the TH, that's what you're going to get. But I'm not sure this is what I want to achieve. What I want to achieve, so just hold on. So instead of border here, so let me try, instead of border for the TR, let me try padding. Let me try padding. Let me try padding to say maybe padding bottom. Let me try padding bottom to say maybe 12 pixels. Padding bottom 12 pixels, it wouldn't bring out the line. Or let's if we have okay, so I would figure that out so that we don't take all the time. When we go into CSS, right, we're actually going to do a whole lot around styling. So, but at the moment, we are not in CSS yet. So, but what we are using is border to bring that out. Okay. So let's continue, but I'll find a better way to get that done. So I can just copy this TH that I have and put on every place that I have TH, right? Okay, so when I come to TD, I just give it a style. To border maybe 2 pixels solid. Let's use black here. 2 pixels, solid black. Okay, so okay, 2 pixels, solid black, and you can just have that on and on and on. But this is just border trying to segment our table. But there should be a better way of styling. So let me just reference that table HTML. Let me see HTML tables on W3 schools. Okay, so let's see here. Let's try this out. So yeah, okay. So you can see they still had to bring in their styling in order to have this come out as a table, because HTML by default is not going to give you these lines, right? It wouldn't bring out the lines for you to see. So what you see here is that they just gave a border, right? So they used under the style tag, they just gave a border to the table, TH, and TD. So instead of doing what I did, I have to style it individually, right? Remember, I had to go into each of the tags and put in the style. That's because what we are doing is called inline styling. But I don't want to go deep into that because we are still going to CSS, right? So CSS is actually where the styling is. And from there, I'm going to show you different ways of, styling that you can do. Inline styling, you can do styling from your using the style tag. Then you can also have an external CSS file. So at this moment, I don't want to distract us too much. Just want to do some inline styling here. So that's why I have to do it tag by tag. But if you see what they did here at W3 schools, they didn't have to do it tag by tag because there's a style tag that was used here. And from there, they were just able to style table, comma, th, comma, td, and just give it border 1 pixel solid black. And of course, you had all of this. Right. So you can see what they said on W3 schools. They said to understand, you can see this line, this particular line. Right. So let's zoom in. Yeah. So you can see they said to understand the example better, we have added borders to the table. So do you see? HTML does not have tables by default. It does not have, so when I say tables by default, I mean the lines, right? It doesn't bring out those lines for you to see by default. You have to use it's your knowledge of CSS that would help you to make it to come out a perfect table. Right. Yeah, so I think we've treated tables. So we can always do more on the tables. Next thing will be styling of the tables. When we start our CSS, we are still going to work on this HTML code that we have. So we are going to bring in our stylings. You're going to see how we style this table. So well, for now, just let's go with the style that we have. Yeah. And we have just about 5 minutes or so. So in 5 minutes, let me talk about lists so that we'll end HTML class. And in our next class, we'll start from CSS. So lists in 5 minutes. Is that possible? Yeah. Right. So HTML lists. Right. HTML lists. Yeah. So lists, basically, they are just 2 types of lists. Let me see. You can just say 2 types. 2 types. We have unordered. Okay, so let me put you on a new line. 2 types. So let's say, so we have unordered lists, and we equally have ordered lists, right? So just to show you the syntax and how the display looks like, right? So what's unordered lists? It uses the syntax UL, right? Then within the UL tag, remember I said the UL tag acts like it's a parent container, right? It acts like a container. So within there, you're gonna have lists. So it depends. Maybe food items you want to talk about. Okay, so let's see. You want to talk about okay, let's still go with cars. Oh, okay. So let's say we want to list cars. So we can say different brands, you can say Volvo. So because I have 5 minutes, I'll just have to copy. I would like to copy first because we want to still put in another list. So instead of Volvo, let's say you want to have Mercedes, Mercedes-Benz. So here we want to have let's say Volkswagen. Okay, so we can have Peugeot, maybe Rolls-Royce. So we just stop there. So we'll stop there. All right, so this is UL. So let me just have ordered lists at the same time so that we check them out together and see the difference. Ordered lists. Okay, so we still have lists inside li. You have the li tag, right? So what do we want to list now? So let's say we want to list beverages, for example. So let's say I have Milo, li. So let's have milk. Okay. So let's have Born Vita. Okay, so I think we just have 4. I don't know which other one. So let's say maybe Cadbury or something. Let's stop there. All right, so lists. We have UL on ordered lists. So look at how the syntax is written. You have a UL tag, opening and closing, right? So in between the UL opening and closing, you have LI, because you want to list what you are talking about. You want to list, maybe you're talking about cars. So here you can say, so let's use heading. Maybe we say heading 3 or something, and say types of cars. Types of cars, types of cars. So here, let's still use say heading 3 to say beverages, right? Beverages. All right. So, okay, so let's put it after the ordered list here. So let's drop it here. All right. So you have unordered lists and you have ordered lists, right? Okay. So let's go. First is unordered, second is ordered. So let's go. So you can see lists. So with this, you don't need to start typing one. Maybe after beverages, you don't need to say one, maybe comma, and type the, list the beverages one after the other. Maybe now enter a new line. Normally that's what you may do if you don't use this list. If you don't use the lists syntax, maybe you want to manipulate it by any other means to achieve this. it's going to take you some time, right? But when you use the UL, it depends on what you want. Of course, this one is ordered list. The one that is numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 is ordered. The one that is, it just comes with the bullet point here, is unordered list. That's UL. So this is actually how it shows up. You want to achieve something like this in HTML. This is actually how it is written. All right. So we'll stop here. Let me